But let's get to, so the Vikings are 6-2, and things are going very well since the Week 4 debacle in Chicago. They won 4 consecutive games, starting with the game at MetLife Stadium. And for the most part, I think life in Egan right now is pretty doggone good. You got 10 days off. Zim's probably sitting in the office right now, breaking down film. Players, he's given them off until Monday, so their week is over as far as the workload goes. Zim optimistic that Adam Thielen will come back from the hamstring problem and play in 10 games at Kansas City. Life is good, except for one issue. Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes now.
His life not good.
His life not good. His struggle's very real, and what makes it difficult, and we've talked about this previously, is the fact that this is a guy who probably as recently as 3 years ago was a top 5 cornerback in the entire National Football League, which is incredibly hard to do. All right, so last night, I think we all agree that before Rhodes suffered what we thought was and turned out not to be, but he had to leave the game, a concussion early in the third quarter. He was put into the concussion protocol after a helmet-to-helmet hit. And I don't think he came back, although this, for the first time in my life, I heard a press box announcement saying that the player had been cleared to return.
Yeah.
So he was cleared to return. But the first half, Case Keenum picked on Rhodes, Danny Cunningham, every chance he got, right?
It was very clear and obvious to see what their game plan was offensively for Washington. When they were running the ball, it was a little different and a little tougher to figure out. But when they were throwing the ball and trying to air it out, one side of the field is the side they were concentrating on. And it was whatever side Xavier Rhodes was on. They didn't care who the wide receiver was. They were throwing to Terry McLaurin. They were throwing to other guys. It did not matter. Wherever Xavier Rhodes was, that's where they were trying to throw, because Xavier Rhodes just can't cover anymore.
Yep.
And Washington has figured that out. And I think over the last couple of weeks, we have seen it more and more and more. And last night, it was as evident as it has ever been.
There's 2 problems here, too. And they both funnel probably into the same thing, but they're 2 distinct problems. One is what you just said. There are examples of his coverage technique, and I'm sure it's more intricate than this, but his coverage technique, he's off by 3 yards.
Yeah.
Like, guys are catching passes. It's too easy. The second problem is, and this goes back a long ways with this guy, he seemingly either cleaned it up or got officials to buy in for a while, but now, again, because PIs are being called so tightly, they're not buying in. Rhodes has, in the last 8 games, been called for 7 penalties, including one last night along the sideline, okay?
Yeah.
That put the ball at the 2-yard line. Washington couldn't score only because they are inept and their play calling became absolutely stupid. But nonetheless, it gave Washington a golden chance to score a touchdown. That, to me, looked like a penalty.
It was a penalty. It was the correct call. Mm-hmm. I had no gripe with that.
Okay.
But you bring up the point about him being 3 yards off all the time. And when you bring that up, are you talking about where he's starting the play, like when the ball is snapped where he's at?
Where it ends up.
Okay.
No. I'm not talking about
that's because his
press coverage or not.
That's because his athleticism is not what it once was, Judd.
Oh, right.
That's what it is.
Exactly right. So, but there's 2 things. One is that, which is a real problem. The second is the issue that goes back to his rookie year, which is he tends to get very handsy.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time period there where officials almost were like, okay, you're really good now, and so that's okay. He's not great now. And the problem, too, is these officials now are going to call that every chance they possibly get. So, post-game, Zimmer. I'm going to play a clip here. Mike talking about Rhodes' issues last night. And I believe within the context of this, he also gets into the penalty called, which I think we all agree that the PI called on Rhodes was very legit.
There was a couple plays in there that, they're catching a hitch, and they got it for the first down. I'm talking to him about being over the top on receivers because that's what we're trying to do. And I always tell them, if they throw those balls, then I need to change the coverage. Now, the one down the sideline that was pass interference, I don't know. I mean, I would have challenged it if I thought there was any chance of them overturning it. But I got a thing in the email today that they haven't overturned any. So I said, screw it.
The most surprising part of that clip is that Zim checks his email on game day. That's the most surprising part of what he said.
I bet somebody prints them out and brings them to him.
The fact that he reads it though it's game day.
But it's an important one. If you're going through them for Zim and you're going to bring him his emails, you're going to say, Mike, look at this. Quit challenging these calls. They're not calling any. They're not reversing any of them.
I don't think that was a call that would have been reversed.
It wasn't. It was a penalty.
I think it was a very fair penalty call.
There's no chance in hell that call would have been reversed.
But you guys, that's the discussion point. The discussion point is very, very simple here. Mike Zimmer loves his guys. See,
some of them.
No, no. If he developed you,
he loves his defense.
If he developed you, he loves you. He loves Anthony Barr. I guarantee you is incredibly important to Mike.
He's his first draft pick.
Rhodes is a guy who, in training camp of 2014, after Rhodes was drafted as one of, I believe, 3 first-round picks in 2013, Mike Zimmer was in his back pocket that entire camp. He loves this kid. This actually goes back to, and I mentioned this after Rhodes didn't play well against Detroit on Sunday. This actually goes back to March, when I think it was Courtney Cronin sat down with Mike at the league meetings in Arizona. And Mike, and this was taken as a slight, but I don't think it was. Mike talked about the fact that I'm going to get Rhodes back to where Rhodes was previously, because this decline actually started, I think, in full free fall to a certain degree last year.
Well, didn't he say that if Xavier Rhodes is being paid the way Xavier Rhodes is being paid, he needs to play better?
But people took that as being, oh my gosh, he's ripping Rhodes. What he was saying was,
it's on me to get him to play better.
And he perceives himself as being a guy who made Xavier Rhodes into a Pro Bowl cornerback. And he's not wrong there. And so he was convinced, and I think he remains convinced that he can get the best from this kid. The problem is, I don't think he can.
Yeah.
So what Mike says there, and even in blaming the penalty of saying, well, I would have challenged that. I don't think that was, or it's on me because those were hitch routes. So that's on me. All of this comes back to Mike Zimmer's belief that Xavier Rhodes is still his guy and is still good. And if you're a Viking fan, unfortunately, I think that should scare you is too strong. I think that should concern you, because the loyalty shown there would not be shown to somebody who, let's say, is tight end or something. I don't know, but is a different position. And as the caller at the end of hour 1 of Ventline said, and I don't disagree, I think there really should be a conversation now about going into the Kansas City game, what Xavier Rhodes snaps are going to be, and if Mike Hughes shouldn't be playing a more important role. Not to say that Hughes is great, but Hughes is the future. And Hughes definitely physically is not cooked. And I'm concerned, the more I watch Rhodes, that some of this is the body's just not there to do the things that he once could do so well.
So do you want some statistics on Xavier Rhodes here, Judd?
Absolutely.
This is from Matthew Collar's most recent post at scorenorth.com. It came out 4 minutes ago. I'm the first one to read it.
No, if it's 4 minutes ago, you're not the first one. But anyway,
I clicked on it. I clicked on it 3 minutes ago, Judd. I've been waiting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Give me stats.
So Xavier Rhodes last night, he was targeted 5 times.
Okay.
Allowed 4 catches for 46 yards and 1 pass interference penalty. So every time that he was targeted, Washington had success. He had a 30.2 Pro Football Focus grade. Awful.
Oof.
After Thursday's game, Rhodes ranks 71st in passer rating allowed into his coverage this season. That is a 124.7 passer rating when quarterbacks are targeting Xavier Rhodes. He is the second highest in number of penalties with 7, all of which I believe have been defensive pass interference. There might have been a holding or 2.
There's like 2 holds in there, I think.
And he has the 3rd highest completion percentage against at 85%. Quarterbacks are completing 85% of their attempts against Xavier Rhodes. He is graded 73rd out of 82 corners, according to Pro Football Focus.
So how can Mike say this then?
There was a couple plays in there that, they're catching a hitch, and they got it for the first down. I'm talking to him about being over the top on receivers, because that's what we're trying to do. And I always tell them, if they throw those balls, then I need to change the coverage. Now, the one down the sideline that was pass interference, I don't know.
Does that not sound like a guy who's convinced that he can still fix this?
It sounds like a guy who still has belief in Xavier Rhodes when there's not much reason to believe in Xavier Rhodes anymore.
Right. And what you just gave me are statistics that I don't think speak to a slight adjustment.
No. I don't think there's an adjustment to be made unless you have a time machine, Judd.
And he doesn't pass the eye test too. I'm with you, but he doesn't pass the eye test. There's nothing about this.
He might fail the eye test worse than he fails the analytical test.
If he cleans up the penalties, I think it only gets worse because guys just flat out catch the ball now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he said too, Mike came back and said, this guy's a power forward. He needs to play like a power forward. He can't play like Alexander or Hughes because they're smaller guys. He has to play his style. Okay, Mike, but the problem there is that's just going to get called all day now.
Well, and you know what? He moves like a power forward at this point. He doesn't move like a guard anymore.
Moves like your guy, Taj Gibson, right?
Yeah.
Let's go
put number 67 on him.
Let's go to the phone line, 651-646-8255 if you'd like to jump in on Viking Ventline with Zulgad and Cunningham. Nate, how are you, Nate?
It's Nick from Blaine, but anyway, sports dad, Danny Manning.
What's up, Nick?
What's happening?
It's good to hear from you.
So, okay. So we got a win, but it was an ugly Thursday football night win. I mean, disgusting to watch. They didn't cover. Not good for me.
Nate, you can't. That can't be your start. Or
Nick,
that can't be your starting point.
Sure, it can.
Well, yeah, it can. And also, sports dad. If I'm your sports son, you got to say my name right.
No,
anyway.
I'm sports dad. I'm senile. I'm old.
Nick,
that's sports grandpa.
Nick, that's my bad. When you called in and I screened you through, I thought you said Nate, so that's my bad. I'll take the heat for that one.
Okay, so
Nick, I still like you.
Sports brother to sports.
Nick, I still like you, Nick. So you're still one of my favorite guys. Keep going.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so I mean, they looked like they were just trying to get out alive. I know you guys alluded to it on Ventline,
yes,
and from what I've heard, but my God, they looked like they were trying to get out of it alive. Case, if Case stays in the game, I'm not sure if it's a one possession game. I'm not sure if they even lose that game. Case was lighting us up, and that's scary to see that our secondary is not playing good these past couple of weeks. But I digress. Does Stephon Diggs have a fumble problem? He did not have this earlier in his career. Now I think he has 3 or 4 already this year.
4 and 3 lost.
Oh, God. And he could just put his head forward and go straight.
It feels like they lost, Nick. Nick, you're talking like they lost. Now, I know
really
they didn't
sad.
cover the 16.5, but it still wasn't.
They kind of did lose then.
Listen, it's a Thursday night game. They got out alive. They won by 10. I'm with you. I want to see Diggs clean this up ASAP, okay? I'm with you there. Be worried about Rhodes. And your observation on the pass defense is spot on. These last 2 games, I've been concerned. Here's my guess. Because Zimmer does a great job of reacting and fixing things. And I do think that there's a fundamental flaw in the pass defense, guys, that goes beyond Rhodes. And it was exploited by Stafford in Detroit. And I thought Keenum did a pretty good job against it as well at times last night. I guarantee you that Zimmer's going to spend the next few days while the players are off adjusting things, because I do think that there's something with the technique and schematics that is slightly off, and somebody, probably Detroit, exploited. So I think you're right.
Whoa, that was it's almost like you sat down with me and said, "Here, come here, sports son."
Yeah, I said, Nick, sports son. How? Well, because you're upset. I don't want you to be. It's Friday. We're going into the weekend. I don't want you to be upset. Okay. Sports dad wants you to be happy.
Okay, yeah, but hereditary gene, you gave me pessimistic and drinking surly.
Well, but I want you to be happy when you're drinking surly, free of worry this weekend. Okay?
All right.
All right, okay. Nick. I got to go now, but take care. Take care, son. Bye-bye. Let's go back to the phone lines. Sports dad's just trying to help people.
Sports dad.
Well, it's good to be for your sports kids. That's all.
It's good to be pessimistic because then things can't break your heart. But I also am trying to send Nick into the weekend on as good a note as possible. Same thing for Ben. Ben and Blaine, another guy from Blaine. Hi, Ben.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So one thing about Zimmer, which we've come to know, is the way he's handling Rose, kind of in a weird way, reminds me of how he mishandled the kicker situation last year, in that he kind of has this way of dealing with things that is just his Zimmer way, but sometimes it can be sort of bullheaded at the expense of the goal of the team, right? So he's sort of sticking up for Rhodes when we really have no idea why, because everybody knows that Rhodes is cooked and everybody's targeting him. So question for Sports Dad is, what would be the most Minnesota way for us to get burned with playing Rhodes down, the stretch of the season? And then what would it take for Zimmer to actually bench Rhodes for anyone else? Because I think, is he just sort of being himself and just like he asked, are you guys hurt? No one cares. Great, let's move on. Is he like
Right.
that with the Rhodes situation? Or is he actually thinking, because sometimes Zimmer comes off as he doesn't think about things, but he actually is very circumspect, I think. So,
I agree.
or is he looking at the Rhodes situation and saying he knows the implications of benching him, he knows the implications of, locker room, stuff like that. So, yeah, those are my questions for you is, what's the most Minnesota way for us to get burned by this handling of Rhodes? And then, what's Zimmer actually doing here?
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the
All right.
call.
Thanks.
All right. I'll answer those.
I have a very Minnesota way.
Okay, go ahead with that, because that's
So
just
I think the
so
most
negative right now.
Minnesota way that they could get burned by Xavier Rhodes being on the field is a pass interference penalty in the final minute of a game in the end zone on Xavier Rhodes that sets a team up at the 1-yard line for a go-ahead touchdown that knocks the Vikings out of the playoffs.
And that would probably be the conference title game, right?
It could be. I'm not sure that they get that far.
Okay, so you think divisional round maybe, or wild card round?
It could be a
something?
regular
Okay.
season game.
I could see that.
Maybe that Monday night game against Green Bay.
No, I think it's a playoff game. No. I don't think it's the most Minnesota sports way possible if it's not a playoff game. I think you're more onto something saying like a wild card game or something. Sort of a very Blair Walsh type of deal where you're like, oh, did that really just happen? Oh my, oh. And then
27-yard field goal.
And then the sad thing is then you say, at first you say, did that really happen? And then you say, of course it did. It's the Vikings. So wild card round, divisional round, definitely see that. Okay, the Zimmer question from Ben there is a great one because he is absolutely correct. I think Mike is often flippant and a surly old cuss because he doesn't want you to know he's sort of a softie. And I think when it comes to certain guys, this is not true of everybody, but Barr, Rhodes, that group, Zimmer developed and loves those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that one of the reasons why, as a defensive coordinator, he was so damn successful is the loyalty that guys felt towards him. And
they wanted to play for him.
And vice versa, right?
Yes.
So Xavier Rhodes is one of those guys. Do I think that Xavier and Mike get in screaming matches? Absolutely. But I think it's just like I'm sports dad. Mike is defensive back dad. Those are his kids. Those are guys. No, but you name me a coach in this league right now that develops defensive backs like Mike does. He's outstanding at it. And a guy like Deion Sanders loves him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he swears by him to this day. What a great coach.
And he loves Deion every bit as much as Deion loves him.
So when you hear Mike defending Rhodes, that's real. But that's the concern is, can anybody, to Ben's point, does Mike have that guy that can go to him and say, Mike, it's just sort of done here. It doesn't mean we can't play Rhodes at all. It doesn't mean he won't play, but it does mean that Mike Hughes has to start. And more importantly, it means that we can't there are times, and I felt this, well, it's been coming now for a year plus, but there are times in the last 2 games played within 4 days where it feels like Rhodes is put out there in a position to fail.
Yeah.
Like you're watching these plays and you're like, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work for him. He can't do this anymore. And so Mike's problem is, I think Mike has a point where he can't, and this is going to sound really weird, he can't really accept that and see that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's watching Rhodes and thinking, well, if I just get the hitch pattern, if I just adjust this, if I adjust my play calling, and yes, it might help, but it's not going to save him. There's too many things. The eye test, Rhodes doesn't pass the eye test anymore.
There are so many things that Mike is with Xavier Rhodes right now. Mike is like, it's not you, it's me.